Let's talk about your musical beginnings, if you don't mind. You conducted your father for 7 years, the last 7 years before he died, in fact. I suppose it's not that difficult to work out why you are so musical, with your father being Frank Sinatra.
Well, the two were not connected. When I was a child, at the age of 5, I started studying piano, and I wanted to be a composer. I wanted to be in music, but not in the sense of performing music the way he did. I wanted to write songs for other people, and hopefully one day write orchestral pieces and the like. That was my motivation at the time, and on through college. It was only actually by accident that I got into singing.
Why did you not want to be a performer? Was the fact that your father was so big and so unique off-putting to you?
No, it had nothing to do with him. Growing up, I learned and found within myself that I was more interested in the music, the making of the music. I was more fascinated by the orchestra than anything else. But then again, watching people, watching Morris Stoloff, watching Nelson Riddle, watching Billy May, watching some very, very fine orchestral people, that's what kind of got my head into that direction.
We're sat here at the London Palladium, currently home to Sinatra, a musical about your father, where your father actually sings on screens. Now, I saw this show a few weeks back, and to be honest with you, everything other than the band to me was distracting, because I knew your father wasn't there. The sound of this band is just tremendous. Does it matter how many people are in a band to make it sound that good?
Absolutely it matters. And in order to, they're not actually making the Sinatra music, they're paraphrasing it. They did it more because, remember, we are dealing with a stage production here. I found the live performance what made this program desirable. If we're just going to have these video projections of film or video recording that was made decades ago, that can become a documentary for television. But this is the live stage on probably the most famous theatrical address in London. And as far as I'm concerned, the live stage performance is what made it acceptable and good enough to be in the famous London Palladium. I enjoy the dance numbers. I think they're wonderful. I think those kids that do this show, there are 10 men and 10 women. I think they are the best professionals I've seen in years, and this show takes no prisoners. I'm glad, personally, that I told the conductor the other night, I'm glad that I don't have to do this book 8 times a week, because it is unforgiving.
You said something earlier about the live thing. Your father isn't alive or live. So was that a duplex for you when you got behind this musical and wanted to support it? Because the band is live, the dancers are live, but your father isn't. He's on a screen. That's odd, isn't it?
I would consider it odd on its face value, except recently, within the last 10 or 15 years, it is no longer odd. The first time there was a show of this type, I believe, was the show they did with Elvis Presley's video things. And they have the live orchestra again, you know, with Elvis on the stage. But this is not unheard of. I mean, this show is not the first of its kind. I think it's only the most intricate, maybe the most technically advanced of its kind.
Certainly the most spectacular as well. How is it for you, sat in a chair in the London Palladium, watching your father on a screen with people enjoying his music so many years after he passed away?
That's a nice thing to see. I watched the audience when I saw the show. I was looking at them, I watched them, and I found that they were entertained as I was, and that is the ultimate aim, that is the objective.
As a reviewer of theatre, I sat there and I found it a bit spooky. I very much enjoyed it and I thought it was great, but it was spooky to me watching a man who's no longer with us on a screen singing live to a band. How does that feel to you?
I agree with you. It is somewhat spooky and it is odd, but in this day and age, the technology that we have at our fingertips in this digital age makes it possible. So why not take advantage of it? And I believe that you're going to see more shows like that coming up in the future. I mean, about different performers.
So I gather you're 100% thrilled with this production?
I'm thrilled with this production. I wouldn't say that I would want to see every show I ever see for the rest of my life like this. But as a recapitulation, as a tribute show, I think this one was done very tastefully.
And I have to ask you, the band, the orchestra, are they up to it?
They're more than up to it. The orchestra in this show, like I said, I'm glad I don't have to play this book 8 times a week, because this book takes no prisoners. It is not for the faint of heart. It is very difficult, but then again, London has always been known for some of the finest musicians in the world, and these people, the men and women in that orchestra, just amazed me the other night. The wind players alone, I mean, the horn is in their face just nonstop. Occasionally someone very, very intelligently has a number, just for example with the piano, but the music is very, very good. They had to cram a lot of excitement, because remember, again, we're dealing with the live performance here. And Don Sebesky, the orchestrator, who I worked with nearly 40 years ago the first time, he is a fine composer, fine orchestrator. But these players in that orchestra earn their pay in this show. And as a matter of fact, this evening, I'm going to, at the intermission in the program, I'm going to go down and tell them how much I enjoyed their performance.
Frank Sinatra Jr. is over here at the moment promoting his father's new musical, Sinatra, which is doing gangbusters. It's in the Palace of Show Business. It's such a beautiful theatre, and they've really recreated something unique. They've made his songs contemporary. Have they changed the actual orchestrations, or is this as they were when he was doing Vegas?
No, the orchestrations are not the originals. They are, in many instances, more paraphrased. Sometimes the intricacies of a specific orchestration might interfere with what's happening either logistically with the electronics or with the dancers on the stage. They can't just do the original because it is the original. Things had to be adapted, and that the answer to your question is yes, it's not the original.
Are they as well adapted? Were they more complicated in the Vegas days when he was doing the Sands and those great big numbers? Were there more people in the orchestra? How was it?
It depended on the individual engagement. Sometimes there were as many, sometimes there were fewer, sometimes there were many more, depending on primarily what the latest of his record albums was at the time. If, for example, you were talking about a period when he had just recorded with Count Basie, then he would use the band alone, without the strings and the French horns and the percussion and everything, which would be a unit of fewer than 20 people. However, if it were at the time when he was recording Sinatra and Strings or the Concert Sinatra, one of those albums like that, then there would be 50 people on the stage.
How many people on average did you conduct when you were working with your father?
When I was his conductor, if we were only using the band, we would have 4 trumpets, double flugelhorns, 4 trombones, 5 woodwinds, piano, guitar, bass, drum, harp, and percussion. Sometimes we would add 2 French horns to that, so that at the most would be 23 or 24. On the other hand, if we were doing a thing with the large orchestra, I mean, I conducted the Melbourne Symphony. I conducted symphonies in different places with the corresponding number of people. Ordinarily, it was about 38 to 40.
When I see a conductor raising his hand slightly and telling the back set to quieten down or the front to get louder, can you hear everything? Do you know how it should sound in your head ideally, and that's what you're listening for? How does it work in your mind? You
have just explained it. That's exactly how it works in your mind. You have to make sure that the music, the message that the orchestrator or the composer had originally is being faithfully reproduced. Sometimes I don't know really how to tell you my own experience. One enclosure, like a stage enclosure, may be better than another. Last night we played a passage in one of the orchestrations. The conductor indicated you must play softer. Tonight, because of the nature of the acoustical chamber we're in, some of the soft passages last night now have to be louder. So you have to adapt with all of that, and as they used to say, that's what rehearsal's for.
And 2 nights are literally never the same.
That's correct. That's right.